I'm getting a new tattoo next week.
You are.
I am. And it's been a long time, but it was one of those. I go on periods on Instagram where I just like follow all new tattoo artists, like locally and far away, just looking for inspiration or maybe a flash sheet to catch my eye. And it did.
Good.
So I booked it. Yeah, I mean, part of me, the little demon in me is like, yes, this is going to be a slippery slope that's going to lead to you being covered in like 6 months kind of thing. And the angel in me is like, Charlotte, you do not have the bank account.
You don't have tattoo money.
No, but I'm very excited.
That
So
is
yeah,
exciting.
looking forward to that. It's been a while.
I still need to finalize the planning of my Jersey Devil tattoo.
Oh, yes. And I absolutely do have Mothman on my tattoo list. My tattoo list is expansive and a bit ridiculous, to be honest with you.
I get it.
But Mothman is definitely on there.
Absolutely.
Anywho.
Shall we?
Yeah, we should. Shall we?
Yes, we shall.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Dina. Welcome to the Grim Curriculum.
We are into the finale of our Ed Kemper series. So far, we have covered his crimes as a youth, which were ultimately expunged due to his ability to manipulate his psychiatrists.
Last week, we talked about the murders that he committed that earned him the nickname the Co-Ed Killer.
And for our series finale, we will be talking about Ed finally killing the one person he always wanted to, along with him taking another unsuspecting victim. We'll also go over the shocking way he was caught, of course, his trial, and where old Ed is now.
Just so you are all aware, we normally like to do a palate cleanser episode after a horrific case like this. This time we aren't.
No, we're diving straight into another one right
we
after.
Are, and it's a bad one. It's gonna absolutely haunt you.
So if you need to come up with some kind of palate cleanser of your own, we suggest you do so.
Jersey Devil.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, if you do have a story you want us to cover in the future, either on this show or extra credit, please shoot us an email over at thegrimcurriculum@gmail.com.
Shortly after the last two murders, a police officer just happened to be looking through gun licenses as part of a random sweep. They found Ed's information and looked into him further because they knew him and they were curious. They found the redacted records of his crime as a youth.
So back then when they did this, they essentially just Sharpied out the information they didn't want people to see, like very like CIA redacted like documents, very, JFK assassination kind of thing. So the officer just held it up to the light and he could see all the information that they weren't wanting people to see. The man that they knew from the jury room had spent years in an asylum for murdering his grandparents. I bet you they were shook.
Apparently, it literally went like he looked at the paper and he went to the other guy and he was like, "Do you know about this?" And he's like, "No, about what?" And he's like, "Eddie killed his parents, or Eddie killed his grandparents."
Ooh. Okay, this is gonna sound awful. Stay with me. Stay with me. I almost feel like on paper, murdering your grandparents almost seems much worse than killing your parents. Because they're supposed to be like the soft little old ladies and little old gentlemen. I know not every person's grandparents are.
Yeah.
I know there's some mean bastards of grandparents out there, but I know, to me, it's like I see my grandparents as like not frail per se, but maybe a little. And it almost just seems that much worse.
Well, they're when you think about it that way, they are more vulnerable.
Yes, I think that's what it is that really kind of shocks me about it.
And then they read that he was 15 when he did this.
Which would blow your mind. Today, it would blow your mind. The officers ended up looking into what kind of gun Ed owned and saw that it was a .45. They decided themselves to confiscate the weapon from him.
They all knew Ed and were obviously aware of his massive size. Shockingly enough, they sent a rookie to deal with this.
No.
When he went to Ed's house, he saw him in his vehicle and he asked for the gun.
Ed then became paranoid because he didn't know which gun the officer was talking about. He was worried that it was the murder weapon. Before he could say much, the police officer specified which gun it was.
Ed, now relieved, gave the gun to the officer without incident.
There was a young woman with Ed. This could have been another victim. After this, Ed began picking up girls and testing himself to see if he could stop killing. Like he did so many times before, he'd pick them up and safely drop them off wherever they wanted to go.
We mentioned before that the majority of Ed Kemper's murders occurred after huge fights with his mother, Clarnell. Throughout this series, we've talked about their tumultuous relationship and his feelings towards her.
It's clear that Clarnell had concerns about her son from the very beginning. She would never find out the truth about his actions and who he really was.
About a month after the murders of Rosalind Thorpe and Allison Liu, Ed decided it was finally time for him to kill his mother, the woman he claimed was the cause of all of his hatred.
It was April 20th, 1973, and Clarnell had come home from a party. She went to her room, got ready for bed, and began reading a book. Ed came into her room and she said to him,
I suppose you're going to want to sit up all night and talk now.
like, that's. She's raring for a fight before the man's even said anything to her, which, because it's Ed, it's like, well, clearly you deserve it. But she doesn't know what Ed has done, and she's just
No.
being mean out of the blue. I would imagine this is very much the way she treated her husbands as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Ed told her no and simply said goodnight to her. He then snuck into her room when she was asleep and bludgeoned her to death with a claw hammer. After that, he slit her throat with a knife and beheaded her. The entire process took less than a few minutes. He's efficient at this point.
He is. After he removed her head, he proceeded to have sex with it. He would later say that when he was done, he put her head on a shelf and screamed at it for hours. When he was done with that, he threw darts at her and eventually removed her tongue and vocal cords.
This is just pure rage and anger at this
Oh,
point.
yeah.
Like, he's talked about humiliating the corpses or the bodies before, and he's literally doing anything he can think of. But it is funny, and you mentioned it before, when he's quote unquote humiliating these bodies, he never does it while they're still alive.
No.
Because he's a coward. He can't do it to them while he's still alive, or they're still alive. He has to wait until they can't fight back or say anything at all.
And it's very symbolic that he took the tongue and the vocal
Oh,
cords.
100%, especially after screaming at the head for hours on end. He attempted to get rid of the pieces by putting them into the garbage disposal, but this didn't work. They were spat back up into the sink. About this, he said,
That seemed appropriate, as much as she had bitched and screamed at me over so many years.
oh, that's so,
So
horrifically
He had
poetic.
so much anger that he rips out the vocal cords, cuts out the tongue, and then puts them into a garbage disposal.
Which then proceeds to spit them back out.
Yeah.
Oh, this is foul. Ed hid Clarnell's body in a closet and cleaned up as much as he could. He then went over to the bar to have a few drinks.
I read in one case of this
Mm-hmm.
that when he was leaving the house, he saw this guy that he knew who owed him $10. And Ed was just like, hey, can I have the money that you owe me? And the guy's like, yeah, sure, let's go for a drink.
Oh my god.
But he is still in this like murdering rage.
Yes.
And if the guy hadn't given him that $10,
probably would have just taken him out as collateral damage
Oh,
at
yeah.
that point. And Ed was so big, he could have done it with his bare hands. I have no doubt in my mind. Later that afternoon, he thought about what to do next. If his mother's body was found, he would then be suspected of killing her. He didn't want this to happen, and so he came up with a plan.
He called her friend Sara Hallett in an attempt to invite her over to the house and kill her so that the murders could possibly look like a burglary gone wrong.
Sara didn't answer the phone initially, but called him back around 5 p.m. that day. He explained to her that he had set up a surprise dinner for his mother and that he wanted her to come over for it. When she arrived, he struck.
Ed strangled her with his bare hands and eventually used the scarf he took from Aiko. When she was dead, he removed her clothing and had sex with her corpse. Ed spent 2 days in the house with the two bodies. On Easter Sunday morning, he stole Sarah's car and left the following note for police.
Approx 5:15 a.m. Saturday. No need for her to suffer any more at the hands of this horrible, murderous butcher. It was quick, asleep, the way I wanted it. Not sloppy and incomplete, gents. Just a lack of time. I've got things to do. There's your confession. He told him how he did it and why. Well, not why, but more or less.
Ed believed that it wouldn't be too long before there was an all-out mob of police looking for him. He drove the car to a gas station and left it there, telling workers that it needed repairs. He then drove 1,600 kilometers to Pueblo, Colorado, and barely slept during the day-long journey. To help him stay awake, he took a huge amount of caffeine pills, which caused him to hallucinate for almost the entire drive.
As if he's not insane enough. Along with that, he brought 3 guns and hundreds of rounds of ammunition with him. Throughout the drive, he listened to the radio, waiting to hear the news that Clarnell and Sarah's bodies had been discovered. But the news never came.
When he arrived in Pueblo, he decided to turn himself in. He found a payphone and called the police to confess to his crimes. He explained that he murdered his mother and her friend along with the co-eds.
The officer who took the call couldn't believe what he heard and assumed that the call was a prank. He told Ed to call back later. Sir, you're a police officer. You can't make assumptions when someone just
No.
tells you they killed their mother, her friend, and 6 co-eds.
So Ed did call back later. Once again, the person who picked up didn't take him seriously. Eventually, he got through to an officer who knew him. This didn't get him any further because the man assumed Ed had just had too much to drink that day.
So just to reiterate what's happened here, Ed's driven 1,600 kilometers or miles. Kilometers, which is still a long way. Nonstop, high off his tits on caffeine. And then he just decides, you know what? This isn't worth it. Fam, this is not worth it. What am I going to be, on the run for the rest of my life? No, this is ridiculous. And the motherfucker still can't turn himself in. And he's tried 4 times.
He actually tried more than that.
Oh my God.
He called so many times and they were just like, Eddie, come on. Like,
Eddie,
go home.
you're on the booze, man.
Yeah.
Can't a man even confess to murders anymore? Jeepers. He continued to call the officers until finally he convinced them to go to Clarnell's house. Sergeant Aluffy arrived at the home and went in to investigate. Immediately, he smelled the putrid stench of death and entered the house. He found the bodies of Clarnell and Sarah right where Ed said they would be.
Ed was taken into custody and was interviewed. He confessed to all of the murders and gave extremely detailed confessions to what he had done.
When Ed was asked later why he chose to turn himself in, he stated,
"The original purpose was gone. It wasn't serving any physical or real or emotional purpose. It was just a pure waste of time. Emotionally, I couldn't handle it much longer. Toward the end there, I started feeling the folly of the whole damn thing, and at the point of near exhaustion, near collapse, I just said to hell with it and called it all off."
Now, Clarnell didn't deserve what she got. She might have been a horrid woman and a nasty bitch and all the bad things about her, but she did not deserve what she got. But if Ed would have figured it out that she was his initial target to begin with, and either went to proper therapy to get over it or whatever, and just to figure out the target in the first place, which when it was so obvious, she's the horrible person in your life.
Yeah.
And then all these people, these psychiatrists and psychologists are like, do not go anywhere near your mother.
Yeah. And he moves back in with her.
And he moves back in with her.
The silver lining, if you can call it that,
Yeah.
is once he killed her, unfortunately, Sara Hallett was an innocent kind of byproduct of everything. But once he killed his mother and Sarah, he was done.
Yeah, he was like, it was over. I achieved what I wanted to achieve.
And I think if he hadn't done that, he would have kept killing and he would have gotten away with it, because at this point, they have no idea that it's him. They can't even, obviously he tried to call and confess to the murders. They can't believe that someone like him would do this.
Just like they didn't believe that a 15-year-old back then could kill his grandparents. Isn't that wild? Again, it's a case of they're literally telling you, literally calling the police and telling them, and still being just not believed because of the way you behave or the way you look. It's crazy.
And at least he kept trying.
Yes.
Because after that first call, he could have just been like, well, all right.
You know what? I guess we'll just keep driving.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what would have happened if he would have picked up someone else. I'm sure, like you said, I'm sure he would have. Because at that point, he would have lost the plot completely. Not that there was much of a plot to begin with.
I fully believe that he would have worked his way up to Ted Bundy numbers.
I believe it 100%. At the end of the day, it's very clear, as we've stated, that no one suspected him of the co-ed killings in any sense.
On May 7th, 1973, Ed was charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder. When he returned to Santa Cruz, he led investigators to the sites where he had disposed of the bodies. Along with this, he continued to confess further and share more about what he had done.
By the time all this was done, his court appointed public defender, James Jackson, had no other option for defense other than insanity. Ed Kemper attempted to take his life twice while in custody. On one of those occasions, he used a ballpoint pen to try and slit his wrists. Ugh.
Mhm.
Ugh.
The trial began on October 23rd, 1973. The jury consisted of 6 men and 6 women. 3 different psychiatrists found him to be sane. One of them, Dr. Joel Fort, explored his juvenile records and interviewed Ed with the use of truth serum. He told the court that Ed confessed to slicing the flesh from the legs of his victims and using them in a casserole.
Hmm.
Ed would later recant that statement.
It's very hard to say when you're under the effects of truth serum as
Mhm.
well because it just makes you a bit loopy in
Mhm.
general. And while it tends to loosen lips, as
Mhm.
they say, I mean, you're essentially high. You could be blabbing on about bullshit.
Oh yeah.
And Ed's done so many horrific things at this point that his brain's probably like, yeah, add that to the list. So before, when we said, like cannibalism, definitely a possibility,
Mhm.
even though he recanted, now kind of remembering that he was under the influence of truth
Mhm.
serum, it does kind of bring it more into question, I think.
I still wouldn't put it past him.
No, absolutely not. Dr. Fort determined that Ed was fully aware of his actions and that he even enjoyed the infamy that came along with being called a serial killer.
It was clear to him that what Ed did was due to his obsession with sex and violence, along with his hatred towards women. On November 1st, Ed took the stand and attempted to convince the jury that he was acting out of insanity.
He testified that his actions could only have been committed by someone with a sick mind. He said that he killed his victims because they were his possessions to do with whatever he wanted. He also claimed that there were 2 beings in his body and that when the dark personality took over, his conscious self would black out and be unaware of what was happening.
Ed, later talking about how much he practiced before he abducted his first victim, certainly squashed that theory. He had also already told officers that he did feel some remorse and that he had taken to drinking more in an attempt to make himself feel better.
Ed was also very open about the necrophilia in his initial confessions. He stated that removing someone's head gave him a sexual thrill and compared the feeling to being given a narcotic.
One of the things that he says that sticks with me, and I tried to find a clip of this to play it,
Mhm.
is he says something along the lines of, I'm going to paraphrase this, but an average person sees a pretty girl walking and he thinks, well, that's a pretty girl.
Right.
And then he says, I see a pretty girl and I can't help but wonder what her head would look like on a stick.
I mean, that says it all, doesn't
It
it?
does.
There's something wrong in there. And as ironic as it is, because that's the thing with this insanity plea,
Mhm.
what he's doing is insane.
Mhm.
The things he's doing to these people is bonkers. Normal people, quote unquote normal, don't do things like that.
Yes.
And yet, it sounds so strange to the insanity defense because if you're sitting there like drooling and clearly like catatonic or out of your
Mhm.
mind or whatever, fair enough, that's an insane person. It looks like an insane person. It sounds like an insane person. But Ed is insane, but doesn't look or sound like an insane person.
Mhm.
So really, you're not trying to figure out if he's insane or not because his actions have already proved that.
Mhm.
It's more that he was premeditating it.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Ed's sisters, along with the doctors at Atascadero, attempted to aid with the insanity defense, but were unable to. The damage had already been done.
On November 8th, the jury deliberated for 5 hours. They not only found Ed sane, but also guilty of all 8 charges beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge asked Ed what he thought his punishment should be.
In part 1, we talked about how Ed would play games with his sister that he called gas chamber and electric chair. She would pull an imaginary switch and he would writhe in agony on the ground.
So it probably doesn't come as a surprise that Ed told the judge he felt that he should be put to death. His method of choice? Torture.
has not and will
No.
not ever be an option, man. This isn't you might be a masochist, but we're not gonna torture you to death, my
No.
good sir. Unfortunately for Ed, the death penalty simply wasn't possible. The Supreme Court had placed a hold on any death sentences. Shortly after this, they would decide that only crimes committed after January 1st, 1974 would be eligible.
He was so close.
So close, and I think a lot of people would have liked to see him
Mhm.
tortured to death, I'm sure.
Instead, he received 7 years to life for each sentence, with the terms to be served concurrently, and he was initially sent to the California Medical Facility State Prison at Vacaville and would eventually be transferred to the maximum security prison at Folsom.
Ed filed a request for psychosurgery, which would involve a probe being inserted into his brain to kill tissue and potentially cure him of his sexual aggression. So basically, a lobotomy.
Mhm.
This was denied due to the risk of it possibly being used in a petition for his release.
Which is smart.
I mean, yeah, if they've scrambled your brain and you're demented, do you really remember what you did in the first
Mhm.
place? And are you going to kill someone again? Probably not.
Ed, finally accepting his fate, became a model prisoner and began to reside among the general population. Inmates consider him to be cooperative and kind. He became in charge of scheduling inmate appointments with psychiatrists. Doesn't that sound familiar?
Guys, guys, stop letting him do things.
Yeah. I thought that was so interesting that, again, he's back doing this.
My God, history, it repeats itself.
Mhm.
And I find myself repeating myself about history repeating
Yeah.
itself, but every time. And it doesn't even take that long.
No.
We're not talking hundreds of years, like, oh, this war, it was a lot like this war that happened 300. No, it's happening within the same person's lifetime
Mhm.
to the same person. This is crazy.
It is. Anyways, he also likes to do crafting and make ceramic cups.
He's also spent over 5,000 hours narrating books for the blind, along with, like we mentioned before, children's books. We were able to find a small clip of one of his audiobooks, and we're going to share it with you now.
Truly, when I was very young, way back in the 50s, I believed all of life would be like one long and perfect summer day. After all, it did start out that way. There's not much I can say about our earliest childhood except that it was very good. For that, I should be everlastingly grateful. We weren't rich, we weren't poor. If we lacked some necessity, I couldn't name it. If we had luxuries, I couldn't name those either, without comparing what we had to what others had. And nobody had more or less in our middle class neighborhood.
Wow. You'd never guess in a million years.
No,
He sounds like, yeah, he has a nice voice.
he does.
Yeah.
I hate
I
it.
don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I feel like any of his audiobooks should come with a disclaimer.
I think so too. And especially the children's books, good heavens.
He apparently really likes reading Star Wars books.
Oh, well, there's a lot of them.
Mhm.
The lore runs deep with Star
It
Wars,
does.
so he has plenty of content. Ed has also given a ton of interviews. Amongst his most significant were those with John E. Douglas.
Those of you who've seen the show Mindhunter will be familiar with this. John E. Douglas interviewed a series of serial killers in an attempt to assist with understanding them and to gain the ability to profile them. They also spoke with mass murderers and assassins. Ed was among the 36 men who were interviewed.
John Douglas described Ed as among the brightest prison inmates that he talked to. He even said that he personally liked him and said that he was friendly, open, sensitive, and had a good sense of humor.
Like always, the mask eventually dropped. In an interview with FBI agent Robert Resler, Ed told him,
The guard is not coming back. They're on a change of shift. He's not going to be here for about 30 minutes. In that time, I could snap your head and leave it on the table. I'd own the prison then. I killed an FBI agent.
he also said,
If I went apeshit in here, you'd be in a lot of trouble, wouldn't you? I could screw off your head and place it on the table to greet the guard. And he absolutely could. That's his way of saying, remember how big I am?
Mhm. Oh, absolutely.
Remember the big friendly giant? Well, this big friendly giant could twist your head off and
Mhm.
not think twice about it.
After he said this, Ed laughed and said he was only joking. JK.
LOL.
This changed how interviews were conducted, and from then on, agents had to conduct them in pairs. Probably a good idea.
Definitely a good idea, but I'm not sure it would have helped.
No.
Ed, in say his 30s or 40s,
Mhm.
at his full 6'9",
Mhm.
I think he would have given 2 people a run for. I think he would give 4 people a run for their money if he was all out swinging.
We said it in part 1. He is a behemoth.
He's a very large individual,
Mhm.
and like he said himself, he's fully capable of doing the damage that you think he can do.
And that also tells me he's thinking about it too.
Exactly. So he's not reformed.
No.
He's just caged.
And the thing is that I thought about a lot is they say he's a model prisoner, he has all these privileges, blah, blah, blah. This is exactly what he did at Atascadero.
Exactly.
He's just manipulating people.
He plays nice until it suits him
Mhm.
not to. And I think to let him out, even at the age he is now, would be a very stupid and dangerous thing to do. I have no doubt in my mind that he would kill someone again, given the
He'd
chance.
find a way.
Even at 78, I think he would find a way. Ed has stated that his reason for giving so many interviews was to save others like himself from killing, although some may argue that he finds joy discussing his crime with others.
He was denied parole in 1979, 1980, 1981, and 82. In 1985, he waived his right to a hearing, and just 3 years later, he was denied again and said,
"Society is not ready in any shape or form for me, and I can't fault them for that."
during his time in prison, Ed was incarcerated in the same block as John Wayne Gacy, Charles Manson, and Herbert Mullen.
Oh, I'm not familiar with Herbert Mullen, I don't think.
You are going to love this next part.
Oh, okay.
So Herbert Mullen, those of you who don't know, he killed, I might get the number wrong, I believe it was 13 people because he thought it would prevent an earthquake.
I don't think I've ever heard of this
Fascinating
guy.
guy.
Well, we'll
I've
have
added
to
him to
color
the
it.
list
Yeah,
because he
absolutely.
is wild, and this is hilarious.
Okay. We wanted to mention him specifically because, as it turns out, him and Ed didn't really get along. He described Mullen as
just a cold-blooded killer, killing everybody he saw for no good reason.
Oh shit, if Eddie Boy is telling you you're a cold-blooded killer? Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to cover Mullen. Herbert Mullen would often sing when people were trying to watch TV, which annoyed Ed, so much so that he would throw water on him to get him to stop. Also, Ed said,
he had a habit of singing and bothering people when someone tried to watch TV, so I threw water on him to shut him up. Then, when he was a good boy, I'd give him peanuts. Herbie liked peanuts. That was effective because pretty soon he asked permission to sing. That's called behavior modification treatment.
Oh my god.
This is true. This is true.
So Eddie is in here reforming people who he finds annoying. If that's not Hannibal Lecter, I don't know what is. He has since had parole hearings every few years, and the latest was in 2024. His cousin Patricia Kemper was there to represent her aunt and their family. She stated that Ed should not be released because he loves murder and will continue to target women. I gotta agree with that.
Ed refused to attend. During the hearing, a 2022 battery case violation was also mentioned. Ed grabbed a staff member's buttocks, and when asked why he did it, he said,
"I just wanted to change the mood. What privilege can they take away from me? I'm already here." So he's like, I'm gonna grab an ass.
He's in a wheelchair. He's just like rolling around grabbing asses.
So now he's just a dirty old man too.
Yes.
On top of all the other long laundry list of nastiness. He is still considered to be high risk for reoffending if he's released. What'd I say?
Yeah. I'm glad that they see that.
He's 78 and in a wheelchair, and they're still like, no, Ed, you're not getting out.
Like I said, he would find a way.
He absolutely would.
Like we mentioned, Ed is now wheelchair bound. He also suffers from diabetes and coronary heart disease. It is very likely that he will die in prison.
God, I sure hope so. That is truly where he belongs. It was where he belonged from the beginning. He should never have walked a free day after what he did to his grandparents. And I'm glad he will. I'm going to say he's going to die there. We're going to manifest it.
We're going to cover it on Extra Credit before you know it. He's not doing great.
I'm sure we will. I mean, the man is 76, and like you said, diabetes, coronary heart disease. He's a big guy.
He also, when he was doing the audiobooks, he
Mhm.
had to stop because he suffered multiple strokes.
Oh, shoot, he is not doing well.
No.
I mean, in all seriousness, tall people like that tend
Yeah.
not to live very they tend not to live as long as short people. That is a statistical
Mhm.
fact, unfortunately. And Ed was a big guy. And now with coronary heart disease, his heart is probably working very hard just to
Mhm.
keep him alive. So maybe he wouldn't be able to reoffend, but I still don't think that means he should be released.
Doesn't take that much to hold a gun.
Absolutely not.
I maintain, I think he would find a way, no doubt about it.
Well, as odd as it's always to say, I hope you guys enjoyed our 3-part series on old Ed Kemper.
I am very glad that we chose him for episode 150
Me
to start
too,
this.
me too. Again, weird to say, but I definitely Ed is one of the most interesting ones in my opinion. I mean, and
Absolutely.
it is simply just because we know so much about
Mhm.
him and all the interviews he gave and still continues to give on rare occasions. So,
He's a fascinating guy. I
mhm.
hate to say it, but he is. And I mean, even just watching Mindhunter and seeing they
Mhm.
portray him so perfectly. It is insane how well they do.
The actor that plays him, they could not have picked a closer match.
Mhm.
Like, looks, mannerisms, everything.
And they even have that scene where he's sitting with the guy and he says,
Yes.
like, "You know, I could kill you right now."
I could twist your head off. Ugh. Well, goodbye, Eddie.
That was Ed Kemper, friends.
Another Ed on our list
Yeah.
checked off, I guess. Back to back to back, Eddie Gein and Eddie Kemper.
As always, we invite you all to follow us on social media. We're on all of the platforms, and we
Mhm.
do a weekly live premiere at 12 p.m. MST on Saturdays of all the episodes. We also have Patreon, where you can sign up for a free tier and get early episode reveals. Our next case is a insane and controversial one, so
Yeah.
definitely sign up for that so you know before everybody else.
Like Dina said, we usually give you guys a bit of a palate cleanser, a bit of a brain bleach break. You're not getting that this time, guys. Unless you count extra credit. And we could be talking about some heavy stuff on there too. I'm not sure yet.
I know I will be.
Well, there you go. There's your warning.
We also want to thank all of our Grim VIPs on Patreon. That is the highest tier. A huge thank you to Yegpla, Mayhem Mudkip, Lisa, Nova, Kevinus Musicus, Brian, Bob, Paranoid Pop Rocks, Steven Centauri, Judy, and Atlantean Jedi.
Thank you, thank you. Your support means the world to us. You really are wonderful. And big shout out, of course, to everybody across the rest of Patreon and the social medias and everyone who listens. You are all the Titty City. Thank you all so much again for listening. This has been the
The
Grim
Grim Curriculum.
Curriculum.
The founding fathers of the United States had no idea that dinosaurs existed.
Oh my god, that's so right. And you know how I know is in Red Dead Redemption 2, you meet a paleontologist and she's kind of being laughed at.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, "I'll show him," kind of thing, and you're like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, lady." Amazing. Thank you so much.
Bye.